So, guys, one for the money, two for the show. Get your behind up. It is time for us to go. Good morning. It is your boy JR. This is the TSA Hoop Show. Thank you for getting up with me this morning. If you are tuning in live, if you are not, if you're watching this later, we appreciate you watching this. This is the TSA Hoop Show brought to you by the Sports Affiliation Network and the Sports Affiliation. Before we kick off here today, want to give a special shout out to all the San Diegans who are with me melting in the sun. It's a crisp 92. It'll peak out here this morning. So if you start seeing some sweat on my face, it's not because I'm in the closed room smelling my own hot breath. It's really because this building is literally baking right now. I got my family in the other room, sitting in some nice AC right now while I sweat this one out with you guys. So, hey, WNBA, man, getting its countdown on. We got a few countdowns on actually in the WNBA. We got some awards that we're looking forward to. Try to do some predictions today. Maybe lay out some plays for you guys to see what's hot today. Also going to talk a little bit of NBA just as far as things to come. We're not going to get too heavy into that. And luckily for you guys, we're actually going to do a little shorty today because we're a little bit short on time today. Going to get back right into it next week with some more meat on this. Nonetheless, what up? Good morning. Welcome. Yeah, before we get too deep into this, just want to remind you all that TSA is sponsored by drafters.com, where you can be placing your bets, your daily fantasy bets, where if you decide to enter the code TSA bets, you can get your deposit matched up to $100. That is drafters.com, and the Drafters apps, who is our sponsor. So thank you guys for that. Y'all, and you know what? Forget all that. Forget the WNBA for a second. Your boy reached 1,000 followers on X. So hey, appreciate you guys for actually listening to this joint every Sunday / Monday, every other Sunday, however we do in the schedule this early in the morning. Because normally we have you got to get your coffee, you got to stretch, you got to do your morning runs and stuff like that. But you guys decided to listen to us here. So we appreciate that. Big celebration for us. Wish I had the little horn for that. But let's get into it. Okay. So the WNBA is just over 2 weeks away from starting its playoffs. And I, for one, am absolutely excited because we've had a bunch of storylines for this season. It's been, if you've been listening and watching the show, we have been pushing and pushing and pushing you guys to pay attention to these narratives that have been coming out, because these are stories that are writing themselves. They are soon coming to a close. Some of these chapters, some of these books even have all started to conclude. So we're starting to see a clearer picture in the MVP race. We're starting to see a clearer picture in the Rookie of the Year race. Some of the Defensive Players of the Year are starting to come into form, thanks to some players not being able to play due to injury or whatnot. We are almost set. The last team has yet to qualify for the playoffs for this season. It's come down to 3 teams battling for the 8th spot in the playoffs. So just remember that there are only 12 teams in the league. 8 teams qualify. There's no East, West, or anything like that. It's just 1 through 8, straight up. You get in, you get your seating. That's it. Boom. And let's just go ahead and get through a few of the teams right now, because um, 'cause, 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 ' because the start and the end of the season, although the top four kind of makes sense, the last four were at one point not the last four for these for these upcoming playoffs. Of course, number one overall. Woo, excuse me. Someone must be out there talking about me. Oh my goodness. First team overall, of course, the New York Liberty. That is absolutely no surprise whatsoever. They have been leading the league as far as wins. They were the first team to qualify overall. They're sitting there at 28 wins, best team in the league, have been all season. There's been no doubt about that. Second right now, and let's just go ahead and show this right now so that way you guys can see this too. Second right now, of course, is the Minnesota Lynx. We have been talking about the Minnesota Lynx specifically in the second half of their season, coming from the All-Star break, that Olympic break, featuring a player who has been one of the best second half players in the league, if not one of the best individual players right now outside of Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier, who has been on a scoring tear. On the Minnesota Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx also won the Commissioner's Cup, which is sort of like it's like it's the original NBA Cup. That's the best way I can explain the Commissioner's Cup. But they won that in the first half, and they are, again, one of the top defenses in the league. And again, with Nafisa Collier, they're helping on that scoring tear, has been helping this Minnesota team basically push out a good deal of offense. They are I believe the second, third, or fourth leading offensive team right now, somewhere in the mid to high 80s mark. So you got the Connecticut Sun, who are right there at third. And we've been talking about the Sun a lot this season, if you've been paying attention, because of Dejanay Carrington, the way that team has been absolutely defending a lot of players. Specifically, you've been seeing a lot of highlights if you've been going on to X or other social media platforms. You've seen a lot of highlights of their defense versus Caitlin Clark. But that defense is actually something that they have carried on from last season as being one of the other. Last year was a surprise. This year, not so much. Defensively sound teams in the East. Connecticut Sun definitely putting their foot down, establishing themselves as that third seed. Technically, could be the second seed right now. Just dropped a couple games recently, so pretty good there. Following behind that, sort of shockingly, not so shockingly, the Las Vegas Aces, of course, featuring featuring a player who I think is going to be this year's runaway MVP. I think the votes are going to be overwhelming. Again, some players have made their case in the second half of the season, but for me, it's an end-to-end storybook ending for Asia Wilson. And the reason why the Aces right now are sitting fourth is they've dropped a bunch of games, and I mean a bunch of games that normally that you think that they'd be able to dominate, but they were missing specific players at certain positions who have otherwise been their lightning in the bottle and stellar play. This team has been missing some players, and they've been highly dependent on a player in Asia Wilson, who at one point was averaging 30.3 points a game. Get your favorite NBA player to do that. All right. The Asia Wilson was absolutely on a scoring tear. Darn near for a few games backpacking this team, although it has come at a loss, but in a few of those games. But Asia Wilson has definitely got this team rocking and rolling. They have won more in the second half than they have lost. It's looking a little bit more bleak for them to be able to three-peat as WNBA champions, but they're the fourth seeds, and they know how to do it and get it done. You can win from any position because, again, it's just 1 through 8, and then beat who's in front of you. Pretty plain and simple. And so if you're looking as far as prediction, as far as one of those top 4 teams, any one of those top 4 teams could definitely take it. New York definitely has a very strong case. And if you're the returning champion, all you got to do is win. And these are best of 3 games. So I strongly, you can put money down on the Aces being there too. So now here's some of the fun parts of the of the upcoming of the upcoming playoffs. We got 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks left to go. And right now, you got the Seattle Storm sitting in 5th place right now. And the best part about that story is the fact that this team was also a lottery team like the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever, sort of like the LA Sparks too. And the reason why I mentioned where they were last season is because this season, thanks to a lot of free agent signings, some trades, etc., the Seattle Storm has acquired itself another one of those top defenses in the WNBA, featuring some stellar play from players like Skylar Diggins-Smith, who have been essentially coming through and shutting up teams and surprising them, like giving them a run for their money. And so, if there's any team other than Connecticut that can disrupt not just the standings right now, but ultimately the playoffs as well, knocking out a big contender, is the Seattle Storm. So you gotta keep your eye on them as sort of like your dark horse for them to win the WNBA championship overall. Would be a really fun bet. You'd probably have to look a little bit more at the team collectively as far as their offensive output and what they're matching up against, as if you want to put your money down on that team. But as of right now, fun bet. So, nice little wild card to throw out there. In the 6th spot, she did it, y'all. They did it, y'all. The Indiana Fever qualified for the playoffs. They are right now the 60. Just a couple days ago, when we were putting these notes together, they were sitting at the 7th spot. And if you had been, again, following along for the hoops, the sports affiliation and the TSA hoop shows, probably about a month and a half ago, I was on here letting every one of y'all know that my MVP, my rookie of the year at the time was Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky, over Caitlin Clark. And I was talking about which team, it would depend on which team was going to make the playoffs and who's the higher seed. Well, lo and behold, sorry, just getting some swag here. Got tired of looking at my hair this morning. Lo and behold, Caitlin Clark, Leah Boston, and the Indiana Fever have pushed their way into the 6th seed. And the best part about it was how this team has adjusted and has beaten other teams, like bigger teams. So like they've beaten the Liberty, they've beaten the Aces, they've beaten they went in and finally got a one up on Connecticut Sun, who's been beating up on them all season. And so as far as the sort of like the We Believe team, Indiana Fever is definitely it. They are rolling right now, winning more of their games than losing. In fact, if you look at the standings and where their last 10 is at, yeah, they just recently lost one, but they were on a little bit of a winning streak before that. So Caitlin Clark's definitely got this team not only above 500, but in the playoffs. Again, there's 2 things that, as far as a huge improvement, their stock investing in the Indiana Fever. And I know people are going to continue to talk about the Caitlin Clark effect. And we can get into that in a whole other segment or on X if you want to, as far as the back and forth. But aside from all that, this team has made the right adjustments. They have improved their offensive efficiency as far as getting their turnovers down, being able to score more consistently. They have turned a lot of Caitlin's triple doubles, double double performance, high performance outputs into wins. So all things that are a tall tale sign that this team is, you don't want to drop one against this team, because it could turn into like the NBA equivalent of Miami versus Milwaukee, or Miami versus Boston, where you sleep for 1-2 game, you sleep for one game, that's it, that's full control of the series, because again, it's like away home home, or home away home, or something like that in opening rounds. So don't let them get one. This team can do it. They're in the 7th seed, of course, the Phoenix Mercury, who's featuring a bunch of players who, again, a lot of Olympians, a lot of history there. Phoenix Mercury, Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, so on and so forth. The Phoenix Mercury team, definitely, they're in there. They qualified. Not expecting them to do much. They are a professional basketball team. They do have players that know how to win, but matchups just are like night and day for this team. They aren't the best team when it comes to going up against other players who are a little bit faster, a little bit more athletic, and their win-loss doesn't completely reflect that. I mean, they do know how to get in there, but I don't expect them to go as far as an opening round playoff game this year. But it's great that they qualified. And then lastly, again, we talked about 3 teams trying to qualify for that last playoff spot. You got the Chicago Sky, again, featuring Camila Cardoso uh, and Angel Reese and Kennedy Carter. We can't disclude her. A team that is still kind of getting into its groove, hasn't completely found the groove that the Indiana Fever has comparatively in the second half of the season, but are right there to qualify for the final playoff spot. Unfortunately for them, we just got news. If you follow the post and you follow me on X, I got the post from Angel Reese herself, posted that she has a season-ending wrist injury, so she won't be available for those final games for the Chicago Sky. So it's just a wonder if they are going to actually qualify, or if finish out the stretch for the remainder of the season. You have a team right behind them in the Atlanta Dream, who have a couple players on there who can definitely push to help make this playoffs. It's just more of a question of who's going to win out. And then the Washington Mystics, who have been coming on in the last 5 or 6 games, and are on a 2-game winning streak right now, are right in there and could just sneak in there for that last playoff spot. So that's 3 teams trying to qualify for the 8th playoff spot, which is going to be absolutely bananas to watch. But if you guys are getting out your predictors, you guys are trying to place your season-ending bets, trying to get a little bit more money as far as who's going to be able to push through the playoffs. Again, if you go on top 4, you got New York and Las Vegas right there. Easy money. And again, if you're trying to put on one of these sleeper teams, Seattle's that first one, which is a great first team. And then the Indiana Fever is a nice next one, because, again, it allows you to invest money in the story that has been behind Caitlin Clark, that has been going through all season long. So again, appreciate you guys tuning in this morning. Again, it's the Sports Affiliation Hoop Show. No one quite on the stream right now, which is absolutely fine, because you guys can go back and watch this later. Listen to this in your car ride onto work, if you're going in for brunch this morning or going on your morning jog. Just something to listen to. Now, let's go ahead and settle some arguments right now. I mentioned earlier, it's coming towards the end of the season. Asia Wilson, Rickea Jackson. Actually, no. Rickea is going to be, let's just do it like this. Okay. MVP. MVP. So we're voting on MVP for the end of the season. And right now, Asia Wilson's the clear favorite, right? Well, this has been a season of two halves, and I mentioned two players earlier in Nafisa Collier and Asia Wilson, as far as like, yeah, Asia Wilson and Nafisa Collier is going to come on in the second half. Well, another player that's been coming on in the second half that has been absolutely lighting it up on the offensive side is Dearica Hamby of the Los Angeles Sparks. And Hamby has been doing for the Sparks what you would say Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark combined have been doing for their respective teams, which is piling up those stats, improving their scoring. And as far as the most improved player, for a player that's in their 10th, almost 10th year in the WNBA, has absolutely killed it. This is a player that used to be part of the Aces, had some stuff go down, which is a whole other chapter and story that that'll be talked about. Came over to the Sparks, got into a groove, got into like sort of a rhythm, had to figure out her place in the rotation because again, this team was a lottery team. They just drafted Cameron Brink and Rickea Jackson, trying to get those two going. And she worked with Coach Kurt Miller and found her groove and is probably right now third in voting as far as MVP goes. Most likely first overall as far as most improved player. If you aren't quite familiar with her game, I recommend you go back and watch the most recent game, not the one against Chicago, but the one before that versus Indiana versus the Fever. Yes, I mean the first half of the Chicago game. I mean, you could watch that one. Chicago ended up winning that game, but I don't like watching good games and losses. It's sort of disheartening to me watching the player go off for like 30, 40, 50 in a loss and like a 10-point loss. It's just like, okay, what was all that even for? Wasted gas, as I like to say. Next player up again, we talk about Nafisa Collier. Woman's on a tear, man. She said, "I'll not only backpack the Olympic team, but I will backpack my team when I get back." And she has been absolutely dominant at her position, the forward position for the Lynx. I mean, she's got her team right there, number 2 overall. Definitely a high candidate for some first place votes for MVP. But overall, it's Asia Wilson. I'm gonna put my vote down right now. If you guys want to make your predictions for the end of the season, I know you're probably not going to be in the plus money a lot. You probably have to put a little bit down to get some back. But Asia Wilson, clear overall favorite for MVP. Mark it here. Listen in. Make sure that you keep tuning in because we're going to update you on the standings for that race as well. Now, everyone and X's, all social media's favorite, who's going to win Rookie of the Year? Okay, so records have been broken. Angel Reese broke the rebounding record. Caitlin Clark broke the scoring record. Neither one, and the only one of the two that have been that are going to the playoffs right now looks like it's Caitlin Clark, and so that's an automatic vote from me, which is easy money, but it's also sort of like voting for Victor Wembanyama when he got drafted as, oh, he's going to be Rookie of the Year. It was sort of like it almost feels planned. The hard part about saying that it was planned is the fact that the Indiana Fever started out 1-10, and the Chicago Sky were the team that was on top, sitting there in 6th and 7th seed early on in the season. The effect that each player Caitlin Clark for the Fever and Angel Reese for the Sky had made for their team. Caitlin Clark was still figuring it out. She's still high turnover. She's lowered her turnovers, but she was super high turnover. The team was a mishmash. They were playing originally through the middle with Leah Boston. Wasn't quite working out. Chicago had sort of already figured that they were going to go through Reese. They were going to figure out how to sort of implement Cardoso in. His team hadn't been used to playing two bigs at once, but they had figured it out ways to win. So Reese was getting those rebounds, just making a name for herself, double machine. Those were translated into wins. Caitlin Clark's stuff wasn't. And then they flipped. But they didn't just flip. They went completely polar opposite directions because the Chicago Sky, the stock on that absolutely plummeted, and the stock on the Fever absolutely went north. And so with all the records being broken and set, it's still going to be Caitlin Clark this season. They qualify for the playoffs. They're going to be, even if the Chicago Sky make it, they're still not going to be a higher seed than the Indiana Fever. So those dots right there, I guess you would say, those check marks are the reason why I believe that Caitlin Clark is going to be the Rookie of the Year. If you want to go ahead and parlay that, Asia Wilson MVP, Caitlin Clark Rookie of the Year. Market. And then we got some other votes for awards in there. Again, we talked about Rickea Jackson as far as MIP. I'm sorry, De'Erica Hamby as most improved player. In that 10th year there, definitely going to be doing some things that absolutely impressive of what she's done over the course of the second half of this season, primarily in the three-point shooting category. She's been absolutely figuring out how to utilize that as part of her game, shooting the ball more, dominating, absolutely dominating for the team. They've been eliminated, of course, the Sparks, but she definitely gets my vote as most improved player for helping sort of correct the ship when injuries and sort of like an identity has been kind of plaguing this team right now, trying to figure out who they are and how they can start defending well. Defensive Player of the Year, mentioned Dejanay Carrington and Kennedy Carter, two players who have been absolutely monsters on the perimeter. I think that if y'all had an opportunity to put some money down on DPOY, those would be two great candidates right there. Of course, Camila Cardoso of the Chicago Sky, who's just now leading the league in blocks. I know you guys love a good block party, throwing it down, barbecue chicken, and all that good stuff. She's just now leading the league in blocks, and then that could be a statistic that you guys heavily invest in as far as giving her the DPOY. There's some other players that are great candidates in there too, but Carrington and Carter are two of my top candidates right now. All right, and that's our set for WNBA. Upcoming in the NBA, we are going to be mentioning the two other divisions that haven't been mentioned so far in articles are going to be coming up too, because again, we're still going through that schedule to talk about everything until a huge free agency signing happens between now and tip off. We're just going to be talking about schedule because we got bets to place and everything like that. So that Southeast region, Miami, Orlando, Atlanta, etc. We're going to be talking about that in upcoming days, but we're not going to talk about that today because honestly, you guys are gearing up. You got your tailgates going, your slow cookers going, and you guys are watching some football today, which is absolutely fine. Which is why we're going to keep this short because want to make sure that you guys focus on what you need to focus on. Hoops is going to be there. Hoops don't sleep, so we'll be fine. Also, there was one other thing. I had it written down somewhere. You know, that's all right. You guys make sure to play some bets today. Go get some money today. If you're not betting on football today, which of course all you are with your fantasy teams and whatnot, gonna talk about a couple of picks that I might actually put some lay down some money on. So give us just a second here. We're gonna go ahead and pop open our screen. And again, if you guys are just tuning in today, this is the Sports Affiliations TSA Hoop Show. I'm your host, JR, and thank you again for taking the time to hang out with us today. Again, it's hot out here. It's gonna be some 90 something billion degrees outside, so we're gonna try and stay as cool as we can while things heat up out there and in hoops land. So today got a bunch of Atlanta. You know, you talk about that team trying to qualify versus playing versus the Indiana Fever who have qualified. So got a bunch of Caitlin Clark lays, points, rebounds. 26 is the line right now for Caitlin Clark. Definitely a huge candidate for going over on that. She's been in the mid 30s range. So if you guys are laying some money on that, that'd be a good plus money bet right there. Um, you got Tina Charles, who just moved up in the all-time scoring list over there in Atlanta. Definitely a good bet as far as points rebounds is concerned. I think it's about the 26 and a half, 27 range. Good over on that. And then, of course, you got a player over in Minnesota uh, uh, that I believe that we should go ahead and put the plus money on the points is Nafisa Collier, who who never disappoints. A couple other games today. Of course, you got the Aces playing the Liberty, which is always a barn burner. So if you have Brianna Stewart on the line, you got Asia Wilson on the line. I'm putting my money on Asia as far as plus points are concerned. Always iffy on the rebounding because New York has found a way to sort of clog the paint and steal some rebounds all over the place. So I wouldn't give Asia Wilson too many rebounds. If you're sitting at a 6, that's a plus. Anything over that, just go ahead and go on the under for that. Those are my bets for today. Thank you guys. It's a shorty because I'm going to go back and get in some AC. But we're going to be back with you same bat time, same bat channel next week, 7:30 in the morning. Thanks again for tuning into this show. We're going to go ahead and attach some plays, so make sure to keep it out for that. Make sure you're following along. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and don't just watch us. Watch everyone here in the Sports Affiliation Network, especially here. Just please, please, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because we have all of this information. And it does nothing if you guys don't watch, you don't listen in, and tell us that you're winning because we like to make our adjustments. We like to be able to help you guys, the watchers, the bettors out there, the appreciators of all sports. Thank you again. I'm out. Y'all be safe out there. If it's not that hot, send me some cold weather your way. We'd appreciate it. Peace.